What would you do for a plate of food? Would you become someone's slave for a single meal? In your head, you're probably thinking, you crazy? For one meal, I'm going to become a slave to someone? For how long? Ah, just for 7 whole years? Would you become a slave for 7 years for one plate of food? No, of course not. Today, we're going to talk about a 7-year-old journey to become an arhat. Before this, let's take a few moments to worship the undefeated, the sublime, the merciful, Supreme Buddha. To do this, can you all be upstanding and recite the Namaskara with me? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you may now all be seated. Before we inaugurate, let's take a few moments to make a firm determination. May the qualities of the great arahats, whose every footsteps were like blessings, were gems to this world. May these qualities seep in, permeate our hearts and our minds, and may we also have these great qualities. May, using these qualities, may we also become an arhat, or arhat muhimmad, like them. And also, let us acknowledge the fact that throughout this infinitely long journey in samsara, we've not been good or great people. In this samsara, we may have slandered, offended, abused Aryans, and therefore our path to Nibbana may be hindered. So let's take a few moments to ask for their humble forgiveness to the Sotapannas, the Anagamis, the Sakragamis, the Arhats, the Pacceka Buddhas, and the Samma Sambuddhas, and anyone who's on the path or haven't attained the fruit, and to all sentient beings we may have wronged to. Let's take a few moments to ask for their forgiveness. Okay, right. So we're going to talk about a man who went into slavery for one meal. One meal after 7 years. So one day, at a time where there was no Buddha, at a very unlucky time in samsara, there was a family, a mother, a father, and child. You see, this father was extremely rich. He had tons of businesses. He had everything that he could have ever dreamed of. Houses, property, assets, everything. Soon time went on, and the father and the mother were close to dying. And so they called that child over. Gandhaka, please come here. Son, I'm very close to dying. So I'd like to give everything that I own to you. Everything that our ancestors have left behind will now belong to you. All my businesses will now belong to you. And so, child Gandhaka inherited a lot of things. Soon after, the mother and father had died. And after Gandhaka got over their death, he went into his house and realized that he had a lot of things, but he didn't know how much he had. So he called in the family treasurer and asked him, "Treasurer, how much money do I have? What is my net worth?" And so the treasurer went into their treasury, went and looked at his businesses, estimated what the net worth of his businesses, his houses, his property, his assets, his carts, carriages, his horses, animals, his elephants, his pearls, his gems. And then they went into a special room. It was a massive room, filled with golden coins and jewelry. And so Gandhaka asked his treasurer, "Where did all this money come from?" And the treasurer replied saying, "Sir, all of this came from your ancestors. They had given this all to your father when they had passed away, when they had died. And now your father had passed away, so this all belongs to you." And at the end of the day, the treasurer, when he came up to Gandhaka and said, "Sir, I've estimated that you have around 80 billion coins, golden coins, worth of items. Your net worth is 80 billion. And I'd like to emphasize the point. Golden coins. We're talking about currency back at that time, so gold. Now, the other day, I did a bit of research, and I found out that in the year 2021, the richest man to be alive is the owner of Amazon. The owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, owns around $160 billion. Now, if we say 80 billion is not much, right? But again, we're talking about gold coins. And one gold coin, according to some research, is around now $2,000. So after doing some maths, 80 billion times 2,000 is 160 trillion. $160 trillion, pounds, name whatever you want to call it, but 160 trillion. So you can almost imagine Gandhaka was richer than the richest man in 2021. But Gandhaka was still very confused. Because when he went into that room, which the treasurer showed him that belonged to his ancestors, all of his ancestors, he realized one thing. After they died, they didn't take a single coin with them. Not even their wives, not even their children, not even their property, their house, their best horses, their elephants. Not even a servant. Then what is the point of holding money? Now, if you remember last week, we talked about Rahula, the Venerable Rahula, and how in one of his lives he had all the money, and he, after realizing that none of his ancestors took all this with him, not even his father took any money with him, he started giving all of his money. He started giving all of his things. But Gandhaka wasn't like that. He thought, I have 160 trillion. All to myself. 160 trillion all to myself. I'm going to use it all. I'm going to use every single coin. If someone was to give you $1 billion, pounds, rupees, whatever, euros, it doesn't matter. What would you do with it? So to be honest, right, if you have 160 trillion, that's almost like having enough money to do whatever you want. So you can imagine Gandhaka living in luxury. But he also had another idea. You know what? What is the point of living in luxury all by myself? You know what? In your head, you're probably thinking that he's going to share. No. I'm going to show it to everyone. Show his entire wealth to everyone. His luxury to everyone. So using 100,000 gold coins, he made a bathtub. Engraved with gems, glass, pearls, so on and so forth. Using 100,000. He created an open theater where everyone can see a single room of his house, of his mansion. Using 100,000 more, he created a beautiful table, chairs for one person. And for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he spent 1,000 gold coins. How much do you spend for your meals? Well, Gandhaka spent 2 million per meal. 2 million for breakfast, 2 million for lunch, 2 million for dinner. You can almost imagine him eating money. And on a full moon, Poya day. So just like next week on Wednesday, we have Posan Poya. Every full moon Poya day, he would spend 100,000 decorating his house, decorating his gardens, decorating the entire town. Why? Because Gandhaka was going to eat a feast that day. He sent messages far and wide telling people that Gandhaka is now going to have his special feast. First, he bathed himself in scented water 16 times, using different scents. So you can always imagine one time he'll bath in rose water, next time he'll bath in a completely different scented water. Now he had all the money, right? He had a tailor to himself to tailor him the most beautiful clothes, the most handsome suit. And on a plate, a golden plate that was worth 100,000 gold coins, he had food. He washed his hands in scented water, and he made his way to this open arena. So it was on a high floor in his mansion. He would advance. In front of him, there would have been a parade. People dancing, singing. was a festival. And once he was ushered to his seat, he would eat. And the entire city would come and watch to see Gandhaka eat his special feast. Think about it. Think about how much he spent. It was a festival. People came and watched him eat. And he did this every month. Every month he would spend so much on one meal. Just because he had a lot of money, just because he wanted to. So if any of you have the idea of becoming the richest man alive, try beating Gandhaka. 160, just about 160 trillion, not much. One day, a peasant, a poor peasant, who earned money by chopping wood. That's his job. He went and chopped wood. He traveled from place to place chopping wood. That was his entire life. And finally, after the days of work, he decided to go back to the town. But unfortunately, it was getting dark. It was getting too dark for him to travel home, so he decided to go to one of his friend's house. One of his friends, or one of his best friend's houses. And so he greeted the friend, and the friend allowed him to stay. And then he heard some drumming. This poor peasant heard some drumming. And a man shouting something, but he couldn't really catch what he was saying. And so he asked his friend, "My good friend, what did that guy say?" He said a message. Oh, that message. Oh, that was the message that this really rich guy called Gandhaka sends every month. You see, he has money coming out from his taps. He has to eat food like this. He gets to drink these sort of drinks. Wine that extremely old alcohol. He gets to do all this. In front of him, he has a beautiful parade. And on his golden plate, he has a feast like no one has seen. So the messenger was sending the message that he was going to have his special feast tomorrow. So this friend, having heard Gandhaka do all this amazing stuff, have all this money, spend it all, he asked a friend, "Oh, my friend, can we please go and watch as well? I want to see this feast that this guy has. I want to see this parade. I want to see all of this." So the very next day, at noon, these two friends went to the open theater. And I saw Gandhaka bathing himself in scented water, and to the sound of the drum, and surrounded by beautiful dancers, by ministers, by a lot of these famous people, he was proceeding to his table. Now this poor peasant was looking at this awestruck. He didn't know what to think. He was speechless. Finally, when he came back to his senses, he said, "Please, I want to. I want a part of his meal, just a small part. I would do anything, absolutely anything." And the friend replied saying, "Are you crazy? That is so expensive. You can't have anything that he's having. He spends 100,000 just for that plate. You can't. You're a peasant, just like me. You don't have money. Oh, please. I just want a small part of his meal." No, he's the son of this businessman. He's the son of that merchant. That's why he has all this money. You and I, we're hard-working peasants. Please. Oh, please. I want to have a part of his meal. Fine. Come with me. So after Gandhaka had had his meal, they went to him in private, and his friend asked, "Excuse me, Gandhaka, you see my friend really wants a part of your meal." "What? A part of my meal? Who do you think you are? Why should I give any of this to you? What am I going to gain out of it?" This poor peasant said, "Please, please, just a small part. You know this plate? Do you know how much this is worth? This plate is worth 100,000, and you're asking me to give a part of this to you? Please, can I have just one bite, just a mouthful? That's it." "No, you're not going to get a single gram, a single grain, none of it. Please, I feel like I can't live without it. I must have it. If you don't give it to me, I feel like I'm going to die." "What? You're going to die because me not giving you this meal?" And you could see that this peasant's face grew longer and longer and longer. That the color, the happiness, the color of his face started to disappear. Seeing this, Gandhaka thought, "You know what? This man will actually die if I don't give him part of my meal." So he thought long and hard and said, "Fine. I will not give you a mouthful. I'll give you this entire plate. I'll give you the chance to have a meal like I did. But only if you work as my slave for 3 years, 3 months, and 7 days. 3 years, 3 months, and 7 days. You know this peasant? This peasant was married. He had children. And yet, he decided to leave them all behind and become this rich merchant's slave. For what? For a single meal. He let his children, go for a meal. Just look at the determination, the perseverances that this guy must have had for a single meal. And Gandhaka had his new slave, chop wood, sweep, clean, and do all the house chores. While this poor peasant was true to his word. And so he did it. Soon everyone in the town, in the cities, gave him a name, Batbelia, which means slaving for rice. Just imagine, right? Imagine Batbelia went outside to run some errands, and people start calling him Batbelia, which means, oh, isn't that the guy who enslaved himself for a plate of rice? Rice slave, basically. He's been called rice slave. But none of that changed him. He wanted this bit of food. And so he was going to stop at nothing until he got it. Morning to late at night, he would work hard. He was true to his word. Batbelia was true to his word. He worked day and night, non-stop, for the entire 3 years, 3 months, and 6.5 days. At that time, another worker, not himself, another worker went to Gandhaka and said, "Sir, Batbelia, his time as a servant, as a slave, is going to end today. So what are you going to do?" You see, a point I would like to show is, number one, Batbelia wasn't the person to go up to Gandhaka and say that his time as slave is over. So if Gandhaka was to say, let him work another year, what do you think Batbelia would do? Would he start to protest? Would he throw all the things in the house and have a rampage? No. He would work that year until Gandhaka let him have his food. And also, Gandhaka never broke his promises. He was true to his words as well. So he said, okay, send the messages around towns and cities that Batbelia will have his food, will have his meal tomorrow. Now you can imagine Batbelia was extremely elated, because now his hopes and dreams are now coming true. After working 3 whole years, finally his dream will come true. And so in the morning, just like Gandhaka did, they bathed Batbelia in the 16 different types of scented water, dressed him in immaculate clothes, did everything exactly the same. And when people heard that Batbelia was finally going to get his meal, people from all over the towns, the cities, from neighboring cities, neighboring kingdoms would come over to see this. One Batbelia finally have his meal. You see, this open theatre was basically almost like an open ground, the stage was on a high floor in Gandhaka's mansion. People, having heard that Batbelia was going to have his meal today, started building floors out of wood, temporary floors. So they put seats, they made more seats, they made layers and layers of seats, like a auditorium. Why? Because everyone wanted to see Batbelia eat his meal. A meal that he worked so hard for. They built arenas No, no. At that moment, at that time, in a mountain called Gandhamana, also known as Isigiri, lived 500 Pacceka Buddhas, silent Buddhas. And one of them, after being in Nirodha Samapatti, after 7 days of being in Nirodha Samapatti, he woke up and with compassion, he looked through his divine eye to see if there's anyone he could help today. And guess who came into his head? Yes, Batbele. Batbele came into his head. He could see that Batbele was extremely poor. But he had a very pure heart. So from Mount Gandhamana all the way to the mansion, he went up into the air and travelled. Now just imagine, right? Now Wat Balya is now sat down on his seat and he has the golden penny in front of him and this plate that's worth 100,000. 2 billion. 2 billion worth plate in front of him. And he has these beautiful servants around him, serving him with food that he has never dreamed of. And then he looks up and he sees a person traveling in the air. Everyone was silent. When they saw that this Pacceka Buddha, everyone dropped silent. Pin drop silence. Everyone was looking at Padbharya and then the Pacceka Buddha. Padbharya, Pacceka Buddha. They realized that the Pacceka Buddha has come to Padbharya asking for alms. Everyone was hushed. They didn't know what's going to happen. You can imagine that it was very tense. Some people thought that he would give. Some people thought that he won't give. But Mohan Badbele saw him. He realized, you know what? I am a poor person. I am a poor peasant who chops wood for a living. But Gandhara lives in luxury because of all the merits he must have done. He must have given things in his past lives in samsara. I am poor because I haven't given. I worked hard every single day. I had to work hard because I had no money. I had nothing to give. You see, before, when people came up to me asking for things, I had no money, I had nothing to give. But today, I had worked, I have labored for 3 years, 3 months and 7 days. And I have something to give. Now, people were anticipating, they didn't know what was going to happen. The Pacceka Buddha approached and held out his arms for. Badbele reached out his plate and gave him one handful. At that moment, after he had offered one handful, the Pacceka Buddha closed his alms bowl with his hand, covered his alms bowl with his hand. Now Bhattacharya was surprised. Venerable sir, why? Why are you closing this? The Pacceka Buddha replied saying, son, you worked extremely hard for this. You deserve to have some. Bhattacharya put his plate down and worshipped, put his hands together and said, Swamini, Venerable sir, I live in poverty because I haven't given in samsara. When people ask things from me, I wasn't able to give because I didn't have anything to give. But today I have this plate full of food. Venerable sir, out of compassion, please, can you accept the rest? The Pacceka Buddha, out of the infinite compassion he has towards Bhattacharya, he uncovered his alms bowl and Bhattacharya offered his entire plate. Just imagine, right? That for the entire 3 years, 3 months and 7 days, what was going through in Bhattacharya's head? He was probably counting down the amount of days. So he's probably like, in the first day, I have 1,194 days to go. 1,194 days to go. Just imagine that. 1,149 days to go. After time went on, I only have 1,000 days to go. I have 200 days to go. Every day he was wishing, dreaming, eating this food, eating this one plate. We're talking about a family man, right? Do you not think that in these 3 years he did not miss his wife? He did not miss his children? He probably did. But he wanted this plate more. Imagine. But he gave this entire plate to this Pacceka Buddha. Having given his entire plate, Bhattacharya was over the moon. He was elated. This Pacceka Buddha replied saying, Bhattacharya, this alms is not just for me. And he went up in the air, and you can almost imagine him create a screen. Just imagine almost like a TV screen. He made one in the air. And on this TV screen showed an area in Mount Gandhamana, or Isigiri. And this Pacceka Buddha disappeared out of sight and appeared in this television. Television made with his supernatural powers. Bhattacharya could see this Pacceka Buddha go back to Mount Gandhamana and give the alms to 500 other Pacceka Buddhas. 500 other Pacceka Buddhas. Imagine that. Just imagine that. So this Pacceka Buddha went back and gave it to another 500. Seeing this, Bhattacharya, the joy in Bhattacharya's heart started to overflow. He applauded with utmost happiness, saying, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu. The alms he gave was for 500 Pacceka Buddhas. And people, when they saw this, they started cheering. The moment Bat Bele gave his food, people started cheering. When they saw the 500 other Pacceka Buddhas, they started to cheer louder. Now Gandhaka was in a room in his house, just enjoying peace and quiet for some time. When you could hear a massive noise coming from outside, a roar. And so he called one of his butlers in and said, "Butler, go and check what this noise is all about." The butler went out and came back saying, "Sire, Bat Bele had offered his plate of food. The plate which he spent 3 years, 3 months and 7 days working for, to a Pacceka Buddha. Sire, I can tell you, through this 3 years and 3 months, Bat Bele worked extremely hard, harder than I've seen any other servant work, just for that plate." And he gave the entire plate to the Pacceka Buddha. "Sir, I think this merit, he's done amazing, a magnificent merit. A merit that is unabated. A merit that is very, very lucrative." Hearing this, Gandhaka went straight to Bat Bele and said, "Bat Bele, I'll give you 100,000 gold coins for your merits." And Bat Bele replied saying, "No, sir, I can't give you my merits for 100,000. I'll give you 1,000 million for the merits. 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion. I'll give you 50% of my worth to you, my money to you, my wealth to you. Can you just excuse me for a second?" And Bat Bele went straight to Mount Gandamana, Isigili, and went to this Pacceka Buddha and asked this Pacceka Buddha, "Venerable Sir, you see, my boss is asking me for merits. Is there a way I can give it to him and for me to have some as well?" Pacceka Buddha replied saying, Bat Bele, you see, the merits you do, you can transfer the merits. When you transfer merits, just like an oil lamp can light an oil lamp without its own flame decreasing, except the flame increases instead. When you transfer merits, the flame of merit increase. So what he's saying is, most likely in your house, you offer candles to the Buddha. When you light this candle, whether you use a matchstick or a lighter, does this flame of the lighter or matchstick or of another candle decrease when you light something else? So the more candles you light, does this fire decrease? No. With one candle, you can light millions and trillions of candles, but the fire will not decrease. To be honest, sometimes it may even increase. Once the Pacceka Buddha said this, Bat Bele went straight to Gandhaka and transferred merits. And the king of the kingdom heard this and requested both Bat Bele and Gandhaka to come. The king requested, "Bat Bele, please, can I have some of your merits?" And Bat Bele again transferred the merits. And the king also rejoiced. And the king built a house, a massive mansion near his palace. 2, in fact. One for Gandhaka and one for Badbele. Gave Badbele enough money, a lot of money, in fact, and gave him the title Baron Badbele. The king, the Baron, and Gandhaka were the best of friends. They're best of friends till the very end. When they died, all three of them went into heaven. So that was the story of Badbele. Next week, we'll talk about what happened in the life afterwards. How a 7-year-old could change the sun, the moon, and the stars. That he had the power to change all of that because he was to become an arhat that day. That is what we're going to talk about next week. So the story of Badbele. He became a slave for 3 months, 3 years and 7 days. All for a single plate of food, which he didn't even get to eat a single grain of rice for himself. He gave it all away. And the merit he accumulated was so great. We'll see the intensity of the merit he did next week on how he became an arhat. That part is very important. But without hesitation, he gave. He accumulated a great amount of merits. The question is, we're not even talking about an arhat yet. We're talking about Badbele. Are you like Badbele? Would you give your most prized possession if someone wanted it? Without hesitation, without regret afterwards. If you can, you accumulate a lot of merit. That merit is something that will push you, which is like nitros for a car, will help you glide to Nibbana. So being rich and poor is also to do with what you have given. So Gandhaka was basically richer than the CEO of Amazon, the creator of Amazon. He's richer. And why is that? Because what he had given in the past. Being rich or poor is about what he had given. So give. You see, Badbele, when he gave, what he wished for was not to be rich, for not to be powerful. He wished for the exact same happiness that Pacheka Buddha was feeling. I want to be as happy as you, Venabusa. I want to be as peaceful as you, Venabusa. I want to be like you. And you'll see how he became like the Pacheka Buddha next week. Okay then. So that was the first part of the story, Suka Samhara. The Suka, the novice monk. We'll talk about who he is next time. Okay then, let's take a few moments to transfer the merits that we required by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting prayers, listening to Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. First and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to have received the Lord Buddha's teaching, and with much gratitude, let's transfer the merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasakas, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha, and passed it down to the generation noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend Dharma. Let's all take a moment to transfer the merits we've all acquired to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all chapters, who've dedicated their lives to the noble path and committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget among them will be the monks and nuns residing in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side with thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Swami Nwanze and All the monks and monks resident in the monastery, as well as Anagarikas touch the monastery. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits, express our gratitude to those who made great efforts to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha, be that by transit during these sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May the power of these merits, if any have been born in the world plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the bliss of pain. May the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits we will acquire to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes all of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass on the know-how and extend their well wishes. May the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, brothers, and sisters, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends, and acquaintances, employers, employees, and to all those who have helped us, support us, assist us in any way, shape, or form. By the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments. May they overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us all take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmanas, spirits, demons, primarily Sakradeva, as well as numerous gods and deities who have committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us all take a moment to transfer merits to our guardian deities who keep watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us, to all those who've been friends, families, acquaintances in this infinitely long journey to samsara, and to all those who've helped us, support us, assist us in the way they could. Let's take a moment to transfer these merits. Let's all take a moment to transfer the merits to the members of the armed forces, as well as the police force, who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost lives in war be their friend of foe who rejoice in the merits required today. Let's all take a moment to transfer the merits to all those lost lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been friends, families to us in the long journey to samsara. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits to them. May the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the world of plane, may they redeem themselves being born in the bliss of pain. May the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let's all resolve, may the power and blessing of all the merits required throughout the day, we bear to witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of arahats on this blessed land. And finally, may the power of all the merits required today, you and I and everyone who made this program a success, become an Arihatun Nuanse, or an Arihatun Mehin Nuanse, in his very life, in the era of the Gautama's Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We'll now conclude there. May the noble Chipa Gem be with you all. Sadhu, sadhu.